Today we're looking at 21 Zelda-likes available right now on the Switch, and I have 7 creators that are joining me for this one. So whether you're looking for something more traditional, think like A Link to the Past, or maybe something modern like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, we should have you covered. I've linked to all of the creators taking part in the pinned comment, so go show them some support and let us know your favourite picks there as well. We're getting straight into it then today with IrchaGaming.
Thank you so much for inviting me, SwitchCorner. Now, you asked me what is a Zelda alternative game that I would recommend to everyone. And I've been thinking about this one, okay? I think I'm gonna recommend Immortals Fenyx Rising. I have a review up on my channel about this game, but anyways, it is a Zelda-like if we are thinking about modern Zelda games, you know? Kinda like Breath of the Wild, because it is an open world, and you play as this character, and it's a whole storyline actually also, about people turning to stone and Greek gods. It's a whole thing. But the gameplay is very similar to Zelda games because of the micro puzzles. There's so many small Zelda-like puzzles all over this island, and they are so fun, they're so clever. I had such a fun time in this game. I think about this game regularly. No joke, I want to play it again. I want to purchase it again actually. I played it on the Switch, but I want to also purchase it on the PlayStation 5 just for that smooth graphics. But it's such a game. I did everything in this game. I was obsessed with this game. Such a big map with several different regions. You can tame horses, you can collect armor pieces. This game is so beautiful, so colorful, so satisfying to play. You get that Zelda sense of wonder when you're playing this game. I did. There are also a lot of small, I want to call them almost like shrines. Small places where you jump down and do a puzzle and you get your reward at the end. Sorta like the shrines in Breath of the Wild. Maybe they actually were inspired by Breath of the Wild. That would not surprise me if that was the case. Immortals Fenyx Rising, if you haven't played it, you should. Because it is such a good game. I need to play it again. So yeah, thank you so much SwitchCorner for having me. I hope you guys want to check out Immortals Fenyx Rising.
Hello everyone, Ren from Hallowed Be Thy Game here, and if I could only recommend one game to someone wanting to play more of the Zelda experience, I really feel that Ys 8 is one of the closest you can get to the mark. Now in terms of combat, there are some slight differences, but at its core, it is an action RPG that follows the adventures of Adol as he seeks to unravel the mysteries of the tropical island he has been shipwrecked on. A lot of the soul of why I love Zelda is here with a hero that is in almost every entry with a fantasy adventure that holds some of the best music in video games. Ys 8 has just a gorgeous soundtrack and just this lush, vibrant landscape that is just a blast to explore every nook and cranny of. Ys 8 has a fast-paced action combat system that heavily encourages you to utilize dodging and parrying to punish difficult foes and bosses. The sense of wonder and exploration I feel exploring Hyrule with Link can be felt once again with Ys. The characters in your party have a quirky and lovable charm, and the threats feel grand as you run like mad from dinosaurs and explore dungeons on the island. The bosses are unique, wild, and fun to fight. I just can't get enough of Ys 8, and even after so many years later of completing it, I get the urge to run through it again every summer because it's such a good time. Thank you so much, Alex, for the chance to come and share some love for Ys 8. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.
So there are loads of different Zelda-likes, and there are probably a few on this list that I might have chosen in front of this one, but I just think it's a bit of a treat, even though it doesn't quite come together perfectly. I'm talking about the charming Sword of Ditto, which has one of the most delightful art styles I've seen in any game on Switch. It was developed by 1Bit Beyond, who, yep, they're a small indie studio, and it mixes action, exploration, and some storytelling. That's probably its weaker aspect. You're setting out on a quest to become the legendary hero destined to defeat the evil sorceress Mormo, and it is all set on the titular island of Ditto. I think the thing that made it special for me was actually being able to play it cooperatively with my daughter, as well as the sword-based combat. There's some spells in here and other bits, and a game like this wouldn't be complete without a cast of unusual characters that you'll meet. Now, there are a series of dungeons that you have to complete, and they can be quite challenging, and it doesn't escape repetition as well. There's certain elements that you'll have to do over and over, but despite these flaws, I still really enjoy it, and it's usually on sale for very cheap, so it's worth adding to your collection. I say collection because backlog is a banned word in this house. Cheers to Alex, nice one mate. I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the games are on this list, and if you want to check out our channel, we're SwitchUp, so maybe see you over there.
What's up everybody, my name is Uncle Geeb, and thanks to Alex for having me on the channel today. Blue Fire is a very interesting game. I think it kind of brings in a bunch of game elements from other game series, but most notably from the Legend of Zelda series of games. Right off the bat, I think the graphics and the art style really remind me if the Legend of Zelda Windwaker and Twilight Princess had a baby and Blue Fire was the result of that creation. It's a really cartoony art style. It has dark themes and it can be dramatic at times, but also very lighthearted in its art style. They did a really nice job mixing the two very polar opposite ideas and bringing it into one game. But of course, talking about Blue Fire, you have to talk about the gameplay and the enemy variety and all of the puzzles that really remind you that this is a Zelda-like game. Speaking of the enemies, the combat is difficult, yet very, very satisfying. I found it very satisfying to be able to use your dash and jump attacks. Made the game quite challenging, but also very unique in my experiences, and a really nice combination there. But of course, the jumping and dashing are not unique to the combat. It's also obviously used for the movement throughout the levels. And while moving through those levels, it is incredibly difficult not to die. And your heart gauge goes down very fast when you're moving throughout the level because the jumping puzzles, you have your stamina can run out. There's enemies shooting at you from afar. There's lots of little booby traps everywhere. It is very fun, but also very challenging throughout the world. Overall, really nice Zelda-like game. You can't go wrong with it. It's usually on sale these days, but even at its initial asking price, of which I believe is $20, I think you cannot go wrong with Blue Fire. Again, thanks, Alex, for having me on the channel, and I hope to see you guys soon.
All right, a Zelda experience on the Nintendo Switch that you need to have, especially if you're into the top-down, older Zelda stuff, is Blossom Tales 1 and 2. If you're familiar with A Link to the Past and you like that game, you are immediately going to see this and probably at least be interested. The story is pretty good. It's told by a grandpa to his grandchildren. It definitely doesn't take itself too seriously, but the gameplay, very good. The soundtrack is awesome on both games. Both of them are fairly cheap and, in my opinion, definitely worth picking up.
Hey everyone, first I really want to thank Alex for inviting me to be part of today's video and present a couple of my favorite Zelda-like games. And now if we jump straight in, my first Zelda-like game that I want to talk to you all about is Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Now this game is a fantastic top-down retro-styled action-adventure game that really follows the Zelda mold for its gameplay with a nice mix of classic combat and fun environmental puzzles. However, what really stands out here is a storyline quite literally rooted in comedy and sarcasm, with a charming yet snarky cast of vegetable-based characters. And overall, the only sad and slightly disappointing part about this game is that its 4-hour campaign is over way too soon and definitely leaves you wanting more. Now my second Zelda-like is actually going to be a tag team of Darksiders 1 and 2. Now this time around, we're rather looking at a couple of 3D Zelda-likes. And once again, they follow the awesome mix of combat and puzzle solving, however, with a much darker storyline focused around the end of the world and a war between heaven and hell. Combat is also much more violent and gory, so if you have a tolerance for that, or you maybe even enjoy it, and you're also a fan of 3D action-adventure games, then these two are must-buys in my opinion. On a side note, there are 2 other Darksiders games, and these storylines do tie together, but my definite favorites are the first 2, with the third one having some technical problems with the port to the Switch and a broken combat system, and Genesis changing up the formula to a slightly less Zelda-like one. So hopefully, if you're looking for some awesome Zelda-like games, these 2 just might fall on your radar. And definitely, if you get a chance, make sure to drop by my channel, Maple Syrup Gaming and Tech.
Luke here from SwitchStars, and I'm actually more of a fan of the classic 2D top-down Zelda experiences rather than the modern 3D variations. But when it comes to my favourite Zelda-likes on the Switch, the 2 that stand out for me both incorporate roguelike elements into the gameplay. Firstly, we have Rogue Heroes Ruins of Tassos, a fantastic little multiplayer adventure game which allows for up to 4 players to venture out into the world of Tassos together, delving into its 4 dungeons as well as several side dungeons, solving puzzles, battling enemies, and defeating challenging bosses in a quest to save the world from a formidable evil. The game's roguelike elements include several classes to pick from, each with their own unique abilities and playstyles, a town to rebuild which opens up progressive unlocks including new equipment and abilities, and an endless endgame dungeon to test your might against. A great little game though, and a lot of fun to play with friends. Now, my second pick today is going to be one of my favourite roguelikes, which, despite the genre differences, actually shares a lot of similarities with Zelda: A Link to the Past. Undermine, though, is a roguelike action dungeon crawler which has you delving into the depths beneath a quaint little tavern to investigate a seismic anomaly. Armed with your trusty pickaxe, which operates as both a melee weapon and a ranged boomerang, you'll be exploring randomly generated dungeons filled with traps, enemies and deadly bosses, but you'll also find a huge assortment of relics and blessings with some great synergies to be had between them. As with all good roguelikes though, the game has a great progression system too, with plenty of new items to unlock and a blacksmith allowing you to improve your equipment with the gold brought back from each failed run, and there are also new familiars to help you out down there and new mechanics and secrets to discover as you push ever onwards in your attempt to conquer the dungeons. Some great pixel art in this one too, and I highly recommend it for fans of roguelikes and Zelda games alike.
My turn, and I'm going to be adding another 10 or so titles to this list today. I know that's a lot, but I want to make sure there's a big collection here. Be keeping it quickfire, and I'm starting things with Phoenotopia. It is influenced heavily by Zelda 2, a game, let's face it, doesn't get much respect, but this game, it is fantastic. You'll be investigating the abduction of all of the adults in this world, and that involves top-down exploration alongside side-scrolling locations and dungeons. Expect a whole lot of platforming and combat, and the bosses here, they prove particularly challenging. Big fan of this game, like many, and if you do look at any reviews from the launch of the game, they may mention a brutal difficulty curve, just know it has been patched since. Death's Door is an isometric adventure game that should feel extremely similar to Zelda fans. Think dungeon crawling, environmental puzzles, and some serious creativity in the enemy and boss encounters. Admittedly, this game also owes quite a bit to the Souls-like world, with combat that can be brutal, but this game, it is a must-play. In the story, you collect souls and jump between the two worlds, but when a soul goes missing, it's on you now to hunt it down. If you don't, you age, and that's really bad news for our lead character, a crow. Hyperlight Drifter is a masterpiece. It is visually stunning, it has one of the best indie soundtracks out there. It also helps that the gameplay is just as good. Now, I wouldn't say it's the closest comparison to Zelda, if I'm being honest, but it has a similar top-down vibe. There are enemies that will test your skill, and there are some sequences where you will need specific items to progress. The combat's just so much fun in this game, and that's most of the experience. It's definitely a little bit more, I guess, action-orientated. Oceanhorn, on the other hand, screams I love Zelda the moment you boot it up. Now, this was released in the early days of the Switch, and it even received a sequel that aimed for a Breath of the Wild vibe. It transitioned to 3D, and personally, I thought it was very average, and perhaps they got a little too ambitious, though I do at least respect the attempt. Now, this original game, it's probably closest to Windwaker navigating islands, but it's hard not to see kind of budget Zelda when you do look at it. Sadly, the sailing here is automated, and in the story, we are setting out to find our lost father while taking on evil. Hub Definitive Edition was a port from Panic Button, so first up, this performs great on the hardware, and this would be comparable to the more recent, I guess, Zelda entries. Basically, think a third-person adventure game, and while it has quite a bit of combat, I think the winning factor here is the environmental puzzles packed in. Some of my favourites on this list today as you manipulate the world around you with a mechanical arm. The story is kind of a slow burn, and you'll need to discover that for yourself. It's not going to immediately hand you, I guess, a reason for this adventure, but I appreciate that. You know, the world slowly gains more meaning as you do progress. Nobody Saves the World instantly felt familiar with its top-down design and simple control schemes, and that was elevated when I got into the combat and the movement was fast yet still strategic. Where this one is different is just the sheer amount of customization, because you see here, we find a magician's wand and we are trying to reunite them while saving the land. What we can do now though is transform into a slew of different forms, from horses to rats to eggs. It's got a whole lot more, I guess, RPG with each form leveling up individually, but this is a gem of a game and it comes from the team behind Guacamelee, and they haven't missed yet. Sparklight for me is Zelda meets roguelike. Think top-down action, real-time combat that we do expect, also dungeons filled with secrets and enemies. It also has a healthy amount of puzzle moments too for good measure, and to overcome the obstacles ahead here expect gadgets, guns and gear, and this is all procedurally generated as well to keep you coming back. Expect here though to move screen to screen, face bosses and die consistently before you do get to apply upgrades. The story kind of takes a backseat, but we are out to stop an evil figure that wants to find a core that will allow him to create a new world and take control. Tunic is probably the most difficult game on today's list. I wanted to put that out there up front. It's as much influenced by Zelda as it is Souls-like in my opinion, but if you are up for the challenge, I urge you to check this game out. The controls do feel extremely similar, as does the hack and slash gameplay. Also the mystery of exploring the world and learning as you do proceed, you know, it's just got that kind of vibe of constantly evolving, even the general dungeon design as well. Then however though, it heads straight for Souls in the sense you can parry once you get the right equipment, bosses will just crush you, the world has shortcuts to unlock, and it's going to give you very little in the way of direction. I still think it's genius personally, and it's a decent port even if the visuals did take quite a big hit here. Eastward then is a narrative-driven RPG that has a Zelda-like top-down appearance, but there are actually quite a few similarities here. A world that rewards exploration, dungeons filled with puzzles, tons of characters to talk to and add context to this world, also a decent amount of boss battles as we learn to maximize the use of these characters. Also those hearts, they're just so very similar. This was actually a game as well that was high up on my most anticipated games for a good while, and when it released it didn't disappoint. Really like the fact here as well we can switch characters as we explore, and we are on this adventure to the land above to escape the clutches of this subterranean society. Okami HD then is my final pick, and this is often compared to Zelda. I'm not sure it's maybe as close as some do make it out to be, but the inspiration is clear. It's a 3D action-adventure game where you can expect to unlock new abilities to proceed, you'll face dungeons, and you'll explore at the same time a sizable world. That said though, more of this game takes place in the overworld than in dungeons directly. In fact as well, this game is massive. As a warning, if you are heading in, a typical run is going to take you somewhere in the region of 30 to 40 hours. Where it does differ though in a major way is what's called the Celestial Brush. We can use this to deliver different actions and attacks, and this can be done with a controller in hand thanks to the motion controls, or you can even draw on the screen in handout, and that is by far, in my opinion, the best way to play. This game, it is a masterpiece, it is a must play for everyone. And that is the video down, and I know there's plenty of games that could have featured on this list, so shout out your favourite creators, their picks, but also your picks in the comments below. Off the top of my head, just kind of thinking quickly, Moonlighter, It All Adieu 1 and 2, Kamiko, Baldo, haven't played it recently, but maybe they patched it up, and the list really from there just kind of goes on. Again though, a thank you to all of those that took part today in putting this video together, it means a whole lot, so do go show them some support. I've linked all of their channels in the video description and in the pinned comments. With that, hit subscribe, join us here for reviews, deals, news and lists daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.